I think that's a sign that you really connected with it, you really clicked with it, and you really made it your own. Because I don't really believe that there's one answer for everyone, and that that everything I say will work for you. I think of it as an experiment. And when I'm working with children, the parents will say, "How did you think? How did you think of that? How did you know just what to do?" I say, "Didn't you notice that I did 3 or 4 things that didn't work first?" So I'm always experimenting, and what I feel like is important is a willingness to make a mistake, to try something that doesn't work, to have your child just say, why would I want to do that? And not give up when that happens. So I'm glad that you had the experience that everything worked right away. I think it's because you really felt it. You really put your heart in it. And parents get a lot of mixed messages. We hear one thing from our parents and our grandparents, and we remember growing up, and we read the experts, and we see our friends, and it can be very confusing. And there was a mother who asked me at a lecture. She said her pediatrician had recommended a book that was extremely different, like the opposite of playful parenting. I said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Well, which one makes more sense?" And she said, "Well, this makes more sense." I was like, "Well, then do that." Because you can't force yourself if it's just like, if somebody says, "I can't do that," I'll say, "Try." But if they say, it doesn't even make any sense to me, then I'll say, "Find something that makes more sense to you." Thank you. So I just want to say I'm glad that there's children here, and I will just talk louder. It doesn't bother me at all. Well, you're right there at 14 months, okay? Because
she's not speaking.
Yeah. So not speaking is really great because when children get a little older, we can imagine, but we're wrong, that they're understanding and processing everything that we're saying, and that they should just talk about whatever's on their mind. And so when they can't talk about what's on their mind, we don't have to worry about the pretext, right? Because we just know, she's mad, she's sad, she's frustrated, and you can maybe guess why, but you don't get confused by thinking it's about language. So it's more physical. So with young children, it's all about connecting. It's all about getting on the floor and connecting with them. One of the keys for babies, and for this first 18 months is especially true, children need to be mirrored. They need to see, so when they're mad, it doesn't help them to say, what are you mad about? Or ignore them. The worst advice that I've ever gotten is, just ignore your child. Just ignore them. They're just trying to get your attention. Why would they want your attention? Because they need it. You wouldn't say, your child's hungry and they want to be fed. It's like, just ignore him. He's just hungry. He's just trying to get fed. Like, well, of course they're trying to get fed. Of course they need attention. So when they're mad, they need us to say, you're so mad, and or if they're mad at us, we need to go, oh my gosh, you're so mad. And when they're scared, we need to go, that was scary. And when they're sad, it's like, oh no, I know, you wish that that hadn't happened, and this is a special kind of mirroring. And if they don't get that, if all they get from us is a blank face of, yeah, I've heard it before, or go away and leave me alone, then they don't know what to do with that feeling inside, and they're stuck. If every time they're sad, we're really sad too, like we're just heartbroken because they're sad, then that's not mirroring. That's us, that we're just lost in our own feeling, and we don't even see our child anymore. We're just like, I can't believe it. Like I had this friend who, every time her son didn't get invited to a party or he had a friend who was mean to him one day, she would just be so upset. She'd be more upset than her son. Okay? And it didn't help him. I mean, even though she was feeling it, she was empathic, it didn't help him because she wasn't just saying, oh, that's so hard, oh, that's sad. Instead it was, I can't believe he didn't invite you to the party. And, she's not saying, that happened to me and I still haven't gotten over it. But that's really what she's trying to say. So, with babies, they need to be mirrored every single feeling. And most of us can't mirror every single feeling the same way. And so when you discover a feeling that is hard for you to mirror, then just practice that one. So I love with babies, I see them, I see a baby at the airport or something, and they're over the mother's shoulder. So the mother doesn't see me. And I just make the same face that the baby's making, whatever it is. And then the baby smiles, because they see that. It's a joining. And then the baby smiles, and then I smile, and then they smile bigger, because that's a second joining. And then the mother turns around, because the mother has felt over the shoulder, with no eye contact, something has changed in my baby, and they don't know what it is. And they're kind of looking around. And the baby, it's not that the baby was miserable before, it's just that they were kind of in their own world. And so there's this social connection that human beings have with each other, and they learn it as babies, and it's wonderful when they can get it, not just a part of it. Not just, if you're happy and you're obeying the rules, then I'll smile at you. And then the other thing with babies and toddlers is at 14 months, okay, the reason that they're called toddlers, is that a similar word in Romanian, toddler? Not really? Well, we call this age from like 1 and 2, the toddler in English, and it means like toddling is like this, okay? So they fall over a lot, but they look around and they look at grown-ups, and grown-ups don't fall over when they walk. And so they feel like, what's wrong with me? How come I fall over? And that makes them extra mad when they fall over. So if you are sitting there and you're standing with them and you fall over, then they will laugh and laugh and laugh because it's not just them. If you are trying to do something and you fumble at it, then they'll laugh because children, they need to know that there's nothing wrong with them just because things are not easy yet. And then the other thing is just lots and lots of physical play, physical contact, rolling on the floor. There's a game that I love, it's called the steamroller, and you lay on your back and you put your child on top of you and you roll, but you use your elbows to make sure you don't smush your child. And I always thought of this as a baby game, but I started doing it at play workshops, and all the older children wanted to do it, and even 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds wanted to do this, and they loved it. And I think it's because when you get that old, it's not cool to sit on your mother's lap anymore, and you're supposed to act like I don't need you, and so they don't get that heart-to-heart, whole-body contact anymore. And they really love it. So, yeah, that's it. When my daughter Emma turned 13, I told her that the next book I wanted to write was about teenagers, how to stay connected with your teenager. I haven't written that book because I haven't figured it out. But some things intervened, which maybe I'll talk about. But she said, well, what if you suck at it? Then I think she realized that maybe she was saying something about herself, which was, she said, what if I'm a perfect angel as a teenager and you are not good at staying connected with me? And I said, if you're a perfect angel as a teenager, we probably won't have much trouble staying connected. So I think it is a challenge to stay connected with your teenager. And that's the number one thing, is to put the focus on staying connected. not on control. Okay? And this starts younger. Okay? So sometimes the parents of 5 and 6-year-olds will say, 4, 5, 6-year-olds will say, this is what I do when my child misbehaves. I bring him onto my lap and I say, I'm not going to let you go until you can control yourself. And they've learned either from me or someone else that a timeout can feel very disconnecting, and that a timeout can be just as bad as hitting if a child really feels like you're rejecting them and they're all alone, they're feeling bad and they're all alone. So it's like I put them on my lap and I say, I'm going to hold you till you can control yourself. And I say, could we just change one word? And that is, I'm going to hold you here with me until we can reconnect with each other. Okay? Not until you can control yourself. Until we can reconnect. So this is what I call a time in with younger children. Instead of a time out, instead of go to your room, it's let's change the scene, let's go together. With Emma, I called it a meeting on the couch. Let's go have a meeting on the couch. Sometimes by the time we got to the couch, we were both in a better frame of mind and everything was fine. Sometimes we'd get there and I'd say, I'm really frustrated, we need to talk. And sometimes we'd just reconnect. And sometimes by the time I got to the couch, I would think, oh, no wonder she's acting like a brat and obnoxious, because I have not been paying any attention to her. When she asked me 3 times nicely to play, I said, I'm too busy, I'm too busy, I'm too busy. And then she started doing these horrible things. Well, I put it together. So with adolescents, with teenagers, it's even more important, this idea that I can't control everything that you do. There's only a certain amount of things I can control. But I can put a lot of effort into us staying connected. And how do we do that? Okay? With 12, 13, 14-year-olds, with younger children, I call it getting on the floor. With older children, it's similar. It's joining them in their world. But what does getting on the floor mean? It means that I sat with my daughter and I watched Gossip Girl. I don't know if that's come here yet, but it was not my favorite show. And Sex and the City. To me, this was like the grown-up version of playing Barbies with her and playing dolls with her, which I hated also. But I did it because this is what she's doing. I want to join with her. I sit really close to her. I make fun of it until she said, stop making fun of it. And I was like, okay, I won't make fun of it. And I started making fun of the commercials instead. That was safer, And, it was like, oh, if we get that kind of beer, do you think those girls will come over to our house, And I never ran through the woods in my underwear before. Just sort of goofy, silly stuff. And the idea is to connect, okay? It was really hard, but once my daughter was a teenager, I had to start staying up till midnight. Why did I stay up till midnight? Because that's when she felt like talking. And she didn't want to talk at the dinner table. At the dinner table, it was like I was glad I could get her to the dinner table once in a while. But to actually have her talk about her life, which is crucial, if we want them to make good decisions as teenagers, they need to trust us, tell us about themselves. And so that meant sitting on the edge of her bed when she's a teenager. And I thought, oh my God, I thought that once she finally could go to sleep on her own, I didn't have to sit on her bed anymore. But here I am back again. And you have to be willing to hear things that are not easy to hear. Okay? So I'm glad that my daughter told me a lot of the things she told me, but I kind of wish she hadn't told me. Because it wasn't all, I got an A on that paper. Right? That she told me. But because she could tell me, I think she could think better about everything. So it's maintaining that connection is really what's crucial. And it's really facing that limitation of, it's the old prayer, to give me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, and the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, there's nothing like being the parent of a teenager to show you that there are things you cannot change. And you wouldn't want to, you know, I mean, you wouldn't want to, you can't lock them in their room until they're 25 and their front brain is fully developed. Give the teenager a picture of what does it mean to be an adult, to be a parent. I think that they're already really scared of adulthood. They look at us, and I don't mean any of this personally. I say you, but really I mean me, you know. I mean, I don't know you well enough to, I don't mean this as an insult. But in general, children, especially when they get to be 12 and 13 and their world is bigger, they're seeing more. They see adults, and it doesn't look too good. We don't look like we're having a great time every day, right? And part of it is because we're busy taking care of them, and we're losing our hair because of what they're doing. But I think we need to show them that there is excitement and fun about being a grown-up too. That we haven't. Well, they're right. So half of them, right. So half of them is in a big rush to be a grown-up, and half of them is really scared of it, right? So I think that if we hit them on the head with, don't you know, being a grown-up is full of responsibilities, it's not going to stop them from wanting to do the fun side of the, you know, whatever, the smoking and drinking and staying out late that they want to do. I really think that all we can do is to maintain a warm, close connection, to let go of trying to get somewhere, and to just stay close. There's a guy named Gordon Neufeld. He wrote a book called Hold On to Your Kids. I don't know if it's been translated into or not. You're not familiar with it. It's a wonderful chapter. It's a book called Since You Understand English So Well, I would recommend it. Hold On to Your Kids. It has a chapter on discipline that's beautiful. And he gives this example of sailing. You're in a sailboat and there's a storm. You have to give up your idea of your destination and where you're going. You just have to take the sails down and rock with the storm and go where the storm takes you and keep everybody on board until the storm clears. And he said that's what teenagerhood is like. That we might not get to the destination. We have to kind of let go of some of that. And it's hard. It's hard. And, you know, my daughter was like easy. She was, you know, that was easy, you know. My stepson came along, and his adolescence was much, much different. And I can't claim to have all the answers, you know, and I haven't written my teenager book yet because, you know, things are still a little up in the air there. But I think that starting from a position of connection, respect, this is the other thing I'll say about preteens, is they act like we don't exist. I remember the first time we were walking down to the video rental store, and she said, "Could you walk a little bit behind me?" Like just in case one of her friends was, you know, going by, I guess. And I said, "No, I can't, I won't." But even when they're acting like they don't want anything to do with you, they still really need you and really want you. They're just not going to show you directly. So thanks, yeah. Girls, I think that all children love roughhousing. I think that it does look different. Boys and girls their play does start to look different. When I read the research on sex differences, what it looks like to me is that the biological differences are very small. They're real, but they're pretty small. And then a society can make those expand or get smaller. And most of our societies nowadays make those differences bigger and bigger. So that by the time they get to school, they're like two different species that can't really relate to each other. And if you don't fit with your species, then you really get in trouble. You get teased or excluded. If you're a boy who likes dress up or a girl who likes sports or climbing or wrestling, you really get punished by the other kids of what's wrong with you. But in general, there are those differences. What I encourage mothers to do is to start out small and really get into it and go into it. And it was hard for me to wrestle and roughhouse, but I saw how much fun Emma had when she did it with other people. And I saw boys and girls really loving it, and I thought, I got to learn how to do this. This might sound weird, but just do it with a friend, have a pillow fight, and you'll laugh and you'll be embarrassed, and you'll close the shades so nobody can see. But to really get to know yourself of why is this so hard? Why does this feel hard? The other thing is to really join in. There was a mom of a 3-year-old boy, and she asked me, this is at the preschool where my daughter went. I was talking to that group, and one of the mothers said, I have a question. And she said, one of my son's favorite games is pulling the heads off of his action figures, like the army guys, pulling the heads off of them and throwing them down the stairs and making explosion noises. So I said, well, what's your question? I call that being the happy, dense person. I was just playing dumb. I knew what her question was, which is, how do I get him to stop doing that horrible game? So I made her say it. I made her say, how do I get him to stop doing that? And I said, well, here's the problem. If you're in the other room and you say, stop playing that horrible game, then your son doesn't know what to do with this energy inside of him that wants to play this game. He either has to keep doing it, and then he's a bad kid because he's doing something you don't like, or he has to stop, but what does he do inside with those feelings? The feelings don't go away just because you can force him to not play the game. So what I suggested instead was play the game with him. And I wish I had a picture of her face. I would blow it up, and take it with me. She was horrified. I couldn't play that game. I couldn't. It's so violent. I was like, well, has anybody ever been harmed in this game? Like a person ever been harmed? She said, no. It's like, well, then it's not violent. It's a game. But if you play with him, then you can say, oh, Harry, your head fell off. I can't believe it. We got to call the doctors and get your head put back on. And we've been through so many wars together, and you're my best friend, and we got to get your head back on. Well, just by joining in, it just takes you 5 seconds, and you've introduced friendship, loyalty, rescue. These are really good things. Now game is not just about explosion, boy stuff. It's about this other boy stuff, which is heroism and rescue and friendship. So we have to push ourselves to kind of join in that kind of play, not leave it to Dad to do. And with the roughhousing book, so I want to just show off my other book. This is the new book. It's called The Art of Roughhousing, and maybe we'll translate that next. And it's got diagrams and it's really cool. But it has a lot of beginner roughhousing things. And one of my favorites is the sock game. And the sock game is you get on the floor, you take off your shoes, you keep your socks on, and you have the game is you try to get the other person's socks off and keep your own socks on. Okay? It's not very violent, but it's really fun. You laugh a lot. Yeah. For bedtime, I want to make a more general point about everything first. There are things that I call them knots of tension. So if you tie a knot in a rope and you pull it, the knot gets tighter and tighter. Okay? Certain things are really common in families. They become knots of tension. Meal times, bedtimes, homework. These are regular, common things that become knots. And why those things? It's because those things matter to us. You don't usually have a knot of tension around whether your child should have a red truck or a blue truck, because we don't care. If they want to buy the red one, they buy the red one. And, so the knot of tension is also around rules, saying no. These are things that matter to us. We have a lot of emotion about them. We have a lot of emotion about bedtime because, you know why. So, and our children have a lot of emotion about bedtime because for them, bedtime is a separation. Even if they sleep with you, it's still a separation because you're asleep. Bedtime is the end of fun. Bedtime also is when feelings inside come up, because we all know, we've all had bad dreams, right? We try to keep stuff away during the day, and then it comes into our head at night. So there's a lot of reasons why there's tension around bedtime. So usually when there's a knot of tension in a family, our child's pulling on one end. But I don't want to go to bed, I'm not going to bed. And we're pulling on the other end. They go to bed or else. I'm not telling you again. And the knot gets tighter and tighter and tighter. So how do you loosen the knot? And so the yelling and screaming and hitting and all that tightens the knot. Play loosens the knot. But you can't play a good game at bedtime. You're too tired. So at other times, at play times, so early in the evening or late in the afternoon, this you can do for any knot of tension, any problem. You say, let's play a game about that. I like to be really open with children. So I say, hey, I've noticed that we always have a big fight around bedtime. Have you noticed that? And it's the happy dumb person again. This big smile suggests you're not in trouble. We're going to try to figure this out. And a game about it, like how can you play a game about something that we always fight about? So it's like so I always say, I've noticed that we always have a big fight, and I use the word we because it's not you have a problem, I'm going to fix you or else. And I call it a fight rather than I notice every bedtime you do whatever. And that we language is joining. So you're on a good footing to start. And then I say, do you have any ideas? And then maybe they do, maybe they don't. And if they don't have any ideas, I say, well, we could play bedtime. Who do you want to be? Usually they'll want to be the parent. They'll want you to be the kid. And you say, okay, do you want me to be the kid who goes right to bed and says, oh, good night, Mommy? Or do you want me to be the kid who says, I don't want to go to bed? Either way, you can have a lot of fun with this game. You have to be prepared. I talked before about mirroring your child. You have to be prepared to look in the mirror if you play this game. Because you will hear the worst things that you have said to your child said back to you. And you just have to laugh about them because they're kind of ridiculous. Or you will hear the perfect parent has suddenly appeared, and you're getting a training lesson from your child in perfection. It doesn't mean you have to do what they say. They might say, oh, you don't have to go to bed. Oh, yeah, we can have more ice cream. Oh, sure. So they're saying their wish and their fantasy, and you get to be the child saying, oh, goody, goody, goody. And the purpose of games about knots of tension is to laugh to reduce the tension in the knot. That's all. The goal of the game is not, we're going to practice bedtime until you get it right. That doesn't sound very fun, right? So that can be done for anything. It can be done for separations at school. It's like, let's play school. And you make sure that there's a hello and a goodbye every 5 seconds in the game. Hi, I'm back. Oh, bye. Oh, I miss you. I'm back. Hi, bye. I mean, it's way more than you would normally do that, just because that's where the tension is. So that's where you want to play it out. There's a lot more about bed. I mean, bed's very controversial and very difficult, Sometimes the play isn't enough. Okay, so sometimes you need to have a big cry, and sometimes it needs to be, but that's another whole story.